Financial markets are all about education and experience. Talking to industry professionals can therefore enrich everyone's journey to become financially literate, which is one of the core goals of Investro. In today's episode, I talked to Mark Fedder about Investro and the current financial market as a whole. We initially discussed why Investro was created and what it has to offer old and new investors. We then asked some important questions such as the classic Bitcoin versus gold, which is better? We also talk about the pitfalls to avoid when first investing. Mark reveals some personal truths from his experience and tells us where he sees Bitcoin progressing in the future. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We do have lots of questions for you. First of all, though, I'd just like you to describe Investro in a few sentences, if that's okay.
Perfect. First of all, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I'm editor-in-chief of Investro. Investro is, in like a few sentences, if I should describe the project, it is a platform for people who are not experienced in financial markets, but they are very interested in them. So we want to bring topics of investing, saving, or trading to those who don't have any experience, and we want to make it as cozy, as comfortable for them as possible.
Yeah, and no, that makes complete sense. You want it as easy to understand and to educate people so they make the right decisions when they're investing.
Exactly, because investing, saving, or trading, all of that can get a bit dangerous. People don't, if they don't know what they are supposed to do or what they should do for themselves, what's the best strategy for them, they can really screw up their portfolios, their capital, their money, and that is something that we don't want to do because we want them to help from the very beginning. So we want to educate them first and then see what options they have in the financial markets that are as close to their needs as possible.
And so when you actually started Investro, did you have like a sort of a reason in your mind that this is the reason you want to do it? Is it because of the market?
It was, I can say that it was a lucky coincidence in a way, because we started at the beginning of the year 2021. Around that time, it was very interesting to follow the markets and actually see what was happening, because a lot of newcomers, a lot of new people were entering the market, which I think is probably best described by what happened with Wall Street Bets. Which is a Reddit account. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but
if you could explain a bit more about it for our listeners, that'd be great.
So Wall Street Bets is a Reddit account that got a lot of investors in. It started with like 2 million followers, but by the end of, I think it was January or February of the year 2021, it had about 10 million followers. The comments were on the levels of like 400,000 a day. So you saw there that a lot of people wanted to get a lot of information that is connected to financial markets. Sadly, most of them were connected to meme stocks, meme cryptocurrencies, and all of those Dogecoins and Shiba Inus, which you can hardly call investments, right? All of them can be viewed as investments for some people, for others not. But you need to know that you as an investor always need to adjust your strategy to what your needs are. And that was not something that was happening at the time, because people didn't understand the difference between investing, trading, or saving, or what they should do with the money, how they should assess the risk, how they should behave in the market. So it was very difficult for them to see that they are not only profits, there are also losses that you can see very quickly just by making the wrong decisions.
That's the thing. I think that at the moment we're seeing loads and loads of new investors coming in, all guns blazing, and just wanting to make money quickly, and they see all the adverts, get rich quick here, and then they put their money into something and just lose it all. And
it is just because it's so simple right now. You literally can just download an app, use it, and then every time you buy and sell something, you see confetti. So it feels like a game, but it's not, because you're literally putting money in, right? So all of these apps, which made it much more easy for investors to get in the markets, which is important because everyone should be in the markets. They should be investing, they should be saving. They can start trading if they want. But it needs to be assigned, or the strategy needs to be assigned to themselves. So they need to know what they are doing. It shouldn't be just like playing around with an app because I'm bored or because it feels exciting. It should be following some process, and that's definitely something that was not happening.
Yeah, you mentioned it's like a game, and that's a really good point, because I mean, is there a lot of addiction with sort of cryptocurrency? And I think there is a lot of people who are having problems maybe because of the app rather than maybe the trading, or they're just not used to the giant swings and market fluctuations that happen with Bitcoin. Is there a point in the future where you think we'll see less volatility with with Bitcoin, or do you think it's always going to be like that?
I'm more than sure that there will be a low volatility that is now, because the only thing that you need to know when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is that it's very new, right? It is an asset class that's been around like 12 or 14 years, something like this. So it's very, very young. You need that asset class to mature. And if that doesn't happen, it will probably die, but I believe that it will happen. You will get more people in, you will get institutions in, you will have widespread adoption. All of that will help with the volatility that will slowly. I don't want to die. I don't want to say die, but I will say that the volatility will definitely decrease because you will have much more capital in. Which means that when you have more money in, it's much more difficult to move the market. So the volatility is immediately going down just because you have more money in. So that's definitely something that will happen. But you saw that in the years of 2017 or 2000, it was 2021, I think, that there were these huge spikes in the prices of Bitcoin and all of the other asset classes.
Crazy, yeah.
And those were just because people had a lot of money on hands and they just wanted to pour everything in because it was rising all the time. Everyone saw that it was a good opportunity to get in, but no one understood why. So they didn't know what were the fundamentals, what is the reason why everything was rising, but it was simply because everyone was pouring money in. And once that stopped, the volatility the prices need to go down, so the volatility increase as well.
So going back to what Investro offers, how are you different from your other competitors?
First of all, we try to start from the very basics. So as I said, we are not financial advisors. We're nothing like that. We do have people who are very experienced in our team, who are professional analysts when it comes to all of the asset classes that we are writing about, which is stocks, commodities, crypto, and forex. So we have people who are experts in those fields, and we want them to get the news to the people, or any form of knowledge they find reasonable to the people as easy as possible, so they can understand it. Which is why we are writing most of our articles in very easy to follow way, very easy to understand way, because we feel that everyone should be able to read them. And if you put a lot of abbreviations, if you put a lot of numbers, people who are not used to those numbers or who don't know what they mean can get lost quite easily. So we want to make sure that everyone can read those articles without any problems.
Yeah, that makes sense, to make it really easy to understand and clear. I mean, when people first join Investro, I think you can sign up with a newsletter, obviously, and receive information every week about it. Is there some level of education for beginners and advanced investors?
As you mentioned, we write a weekly briefing where we summarize all the important information from the previous week, but we also look at what is supposed to happen in the week that is upcoming. So we look at, for example, any important meetings, any important data that should be released, or anything else that should be helpful for investors and traders. But we also try to give this information in not only concise way, but also make sure that everyone can understand what is being said. That means that we understand that it's very difficult for someone who has never had any experience with financial markets to just jump in, which is one of the reasons why we are also working on our Investor Academy, which is basically which will be a set of different courses where we want to go from literally the very beginnings or the basics of all of these asset classes. So for example, we will have shortly released cryptocurrency basics academic course, which is something where you go when you don't understand anything about cryptocurrencies, and we start that journey with like explaining what money is, what a central bank is, what inflation and deflation is, how it works, why it is important, and how it is related to cryptocurrencies. So we want to make sure that everyone has the understanding or the solid base from the very beginning, so they can build up on it. And we will then, that is for example for cryptocurrencies, but we will do this with all of the asset classes that we write about, and then we will add more. We will, for example, compare investing and trading. We can do trading as such, for example, because trading with commodities can differ with trading of cryptocurrencies. So we will try to do all of these comparisons, so everyone who is interested in some form of financial education or financial markets can just jump in and be like, this is the path for me.
Well, I think this is really what's missing, so much so in the market, and there's endless people kind of lost and being drawn into maybe apps and things that aren't doing them any good and are actually making them lose all their money. And so do you think at the beginning, obviously with new investors, they are looking to make money. That's their ultimate goal. They're checking online, how do I get rich quick by trading? And it probably comes up with the general advice where you have to learn for a little bit, invest a little bit of money at first, and then invest more. But I think with the sort of convenient culture and the way the generation is now, it's a little bit frustrating. And have you got any words of advice for people who are starting off?
I think that it's even a saying in the cryptocurrency world that you came for the money, you stayed for the technology, and I think that describes it very nicely, because I would be lying if I said that I was starting to be more interested in cryptocurrencies and it would have nothing to do with profits. Obviously, it was about money at first, because you see that you put, let's say, 100 quid in or 100 pounds in, and you see increase the value to 200, and you're like, yeah, let's do that with all my money, or let's say, let's give this advice to everyone so that they can do the same thing. But then you start unraveling all of these things that are connected to it. And I think this is connected to all the financial markets, that people first and foremost want to make money, but then when they start educating themselves and when they see where it actually is the opportunity that is right for them, they will be studying more, they will be reading more, they will be listening more, they will be talking to people who are from that field, so that they're just not gambling, or they're not putting money in for some quick buck or for profits that will come tomorrow, but they will actually have a long-term strategy. They will talk to people who can set the portfolios for them that are correct for them, and that will help them to build the wealth that they need.
No, that makes complete sense. I think it's a really good strategy, and it's really good advice for anybody who's getting on board with investing for the first time.
Yeah, I think that this is the same with investing and saving, right? That you need to be sure that you understand that it's not the same. Investing is something where you want to build wealth for the future, whereas saving is making sure that you have money wherever you need, so that the value of your money is not, that the money you have is not losing value, but it's either staying at the same price points for you, or it's increasing a bit at least. So you need to make sure that you adjust your strategies to your age, to your occupation, to how much money you have, to what you have already bought or what you own, so to portfolio of your assets. So all of this is connected to saving as well as trading and investing, but you need to make sure that you clearly distinguish what is what.
Especially with inflation the way it is now. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what is happening at the moment is kind of unprecedented, isn't it?
It is. And inflation is a very big topic, obviously, everywhere, which is one of the reasons why we are also making sure that we write about inflation a lot. So we also looked at the inflation from the very basics. So what it is, why is it happening, how is it affecting everyone? And then what people can do to at least try to not stay ahead of inflation, because it's very difficult, but is at least stay in the same course as the inflation is going. Because with double-digit inflation, the times will be, I don't want to say bad, but the times will be definitely at least challenging.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And going back to when you were first learning about investing, did you make any mistakes along the way? Was there a learning curve that you had to go through? Is there any pitfalls that you could warn new investors of?
I think that it's very easy to make mistakes with anything that you are new to, right? So whatever you're trying to do, when you don't know what you're doing. So obviously you will make mistakes along the way. I think what is most important is to do them and to take the lessons out of them. So to make sure that every mistake that you make is not a costly mistake in a way that it doesn't cost you that much money or damage when it comes to like your health or mental health or all of that. But you also need to make sure that you can take some lesson out of it. So for example, if you put everything into one basket, into one stock, for example, and it decreased in value significantly, and then you had to take the money out, that is probably a good lesson for the future, and for thinking more in like the diversified portfolio view, right? So to make sure that you never put all your money into one basket. That's one of the lessons that a lot of people needed to learn the hard way, because when they saw GameStop, Nokia, and all of these stocks, these meme stocks rising a lot, everyone was taking actually mortgages and putting money in, which is probably the worst thing that you can do, right? So these lessons is something that you as an investor or a newcomer to this market should be able to avoid, because a lot of people have done it before. But sometimes people just need to get burned a bit, so that they make sure that it actually doesn't work, and then they do something different.
Maybe teaches them a lesson for the next time
exactly.
they think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that when you mentioned about being, diversifying your portfolio, now there's one thing I'd like to mention is, how's your feeling with gold in comparison to Bitcoin as a saving tool?
First of all, I need to say that I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin. A lot of people would call me a big Bitcoin maxi. I'm not sure if I'm at that level, but I see the value in Bitcoin, and I see what it's doing around the world, what it can do in the future. So definitely, I would be comparing Bitcoin to gold when it comes to saving, in a way that both of them should have at least some presence in the portfolio of every and any investor, because with gold, you have the assurance of thousands of years of history of gold proving that it's worth something, right? At that moment in time, it's worth something, and you will never find a point in the history where gold was worth nothing, right? So that is one of the reasons why gold should be in portfolio of every investor. But I think that for the future, the digital gold, or Bitcoin as it's known, should have potential and should have the place in the portfolio, just because it's something new and it's so different to what we have right now, than just to have the edge of, if everything breaks down the way it is now, Bitcoin offers a different solution. So just as I don't want to call it an insurance, but a lot of people are calling it an insurance to the financial world as it is now. I think that is a good way to balance and diversify the risk that is inherent to the financial world that we see.
Do you see any reservations with Bitcoin?
I have to say no, because I have seen a lot of myths and problems and pitfalls of Bitcoin, and I have actually tried to study everything that should be taken as a drawback of Bitcoin, and every time I dig deep into it, I feel that none of them are actually relevant, because you can take, for example, the volatility argument that is very volatile. Yeah, it is volatile now because it's asset class of $500 billion or trillion, or I think that at the top or at the peak it was like 2.5 trillion worth. But you see that with gold you have 10 to 12 trillion market capitalization. So if Bitcoin rises to that level, it will not be that volatile. Just because it's volatile now doesn't mean that it will be volatile in the future. So while some might think that it's a problem now, for some it is, for some it is not, because some investors are long term and they see the value of Bitcoin, and they will be not concerned with the price or volatility now. So that is, for example, a problem that might appear as a problem, but actually is not. So I think that with a lot of myths that are connected to Bitcoin, you just need to debunk them properly.
Talking about myths then, what is your view in terms of the energy consumption that is used for Bitcoin mining and mining of other cryptocurrencies?
I think that we have spent quite a lot of time at Investro writing about this, because there was this initiative of change the code, I think a few months back, coming from Greenpeace. And it's such a wrong narrative. Even with the merge, which we obviously wrote about, with the merge of Ethereum, which was switched from proof of work to proof of stake, consensus mechanism, you saw that people tried to do the same with Bitcoin. But if something like that should be successful, which I believe it never will, you would change the most important thing, or one of the core characteristics of Bitcoin, and that is decentralized, that it's for the people and people are running it. So there is not a huge member or a huge pool of stakers who can change whatever they want, or who can do whatever they want, or who can change the rules the way they want. So it's Bitcoin is there without any rulers, right? There is no one person who can, or one corporation that can do something about Bitcoin. So that is one of the reasons why I believe that the environmental or mining narrative is wrong, because switching from proof of work to proof of stake would completely change the reasoning why Bitcoin is here. Plus, I need to say that a lot of people state that Bitcoin or the electricity that is used to mine Bitcoin is wasted, but it's wasted just because you don't see the value in Bitcoin. If you see value in Bitcoin,
interesting,
you can't say it's wasted, because we can say that all of this energy, for example, right now is wasted, because for some people this has no inherent value, but for others this might be very valuable, right? And they would never say that electricity used here is wasted, because they see that they are able to learn something from this, for example, right? So if you are thinking about this in this way, about Bitcoin mining in this way, that it has value for some people, you can never say that the energy is wasted.
That's a really interesting point that you're making. Yeah, people who haven't actually seen the value in Bitcoin themselves, so therefore they can't understand how using the energy itself can be worthwhile. That's a very interesting argument.
And as I mentioned, this is something that we try to inform about at Investro, because you need to make sure that people have obviously both sides of the coin, and they can understand and value for themselves what actually they believe. But me personally, I believe that the energy that is connected to mining is very important for Bitcoin, and that's why you can never say that it's wasted or is not valuable.
Moving on, where do you think that Bitcoin adoption comes in terms of with the financial system we currently have? Could it ever take over, or is it something that's always going to run alongside it?
There are different views on this topic. I think that you just need to give it a lot of time and see where it goes, how it shapes. There are narratives of hyper-Bitcoinization, right, where everything will be run on Bitcoin, or you can use Bitcoin everywhere, and all of those. There are people who believe that Bitcoin will never be used all around the world, even though it is used all around the world right now. So I think that you just need to find the sweet spot of where you actually believe Bitcoin is going. I think that it will be inherently more and more connected to the world, to the financial world as we have it now. And I think that it can serve as a alternative to what we have now. And the more, if everything was happening in the financial world and everything was honest and there were no mistakes and it was all clear what's happening, and there will not be and there wouldn't be any place for people who are corrupt or something like this, Bitcoin would not be necessary. So unless there is corruption, unless there is problems with people trying to get more and more power and trying to get power over other people, I think there will be always place for Bitcoin.
That's an interesting thing to mention as well. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of bad press with Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies around things like money laundering. We obviously have mentioned already the energy consumption that it's using. Is there any other negative aspects you can see connected to Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies?
I think that we are trying to be very unbiased when it comes to cryptocurrencies and try to inform about everything what is happening, because there are already hard data that show that Bitcoin is not used for financing terrorism or all of these other criminal activities. It is partially, but it's literally in just like points of percents, right? So it's not anything that is like a huge contributor. You can see that that's for a reason, because with Bitcoin, the ledger, the blockchain is transparent, so it's actually worse to try to get anything done that should be like completely private or should be wrong on the Bitcoin ledger, because any small mistake that you do can at any time lead back to you, which is not something that I would encourage people to do. Obviously, if they want to have privacy over their financial status, they should be able to do that. But if they want, and that should be that can be one of the valuable things about Bitcoin and crypto as such. But I think that everyone should understand these topics from the very beginning, which is again something that we try to do as much as possible to push people into any direction that they feel that it's correct for them.
And could I ask you, this is a slightly more personal question. Do you invest yourself? I imagine you do, and I imagine you're going to tell me what I think already, but what do you invest in, and what's your reason for investing in it?
I try, first of all, to invest in myself, which is something that a lot of people or everyone should do, I know, because that's one of the best things you can do to develop your skills. But obviously, then you need to make sure that you will be, there will be a place for you in the future. So you need to make sure that you can take care of yourself. So investing in long-term portfolio that is designed to your needs and to your risk appetite, for example, is very important. So ETFs are very popular. ETFs on different indices, for example.
Could you explain ETFs a little bit more for our listeners?
ETF is basically like a basket of different products that are brought together because they offer benefit of lower transaction fees, of being able to hold different assets, or for example a lot of stocks under one name. So it's easy for people to invest through ETFs to different parts or regions of the world, for example, so that you diversify not only when it comes to asset classes but also when it comes to geography. So you invest in different markets, in Asian market, European, or in American, for example. So you need to make sure that your portfolio is well balanced. And I think that, well, naming my portfolio wouldn't change the thing that our readers or listeners should do, because they should invest according to their needs.
And in terms of getting the advice and getting the information, obviously via Investro, is there any other sort of people that you'd like to mention, or companies that you've looked up to, like a mentor over the years?
I think that this is, again, very individual and very personal, because someone who I look up to doesn't mean is someone who my colleagues would look up.
Yeah,
but I think that in today's world, it's very easy to look around the internet and see articles or contents that a lot of these people or the companies will create, and you will just find it very easily that these are the ones that fit you the best, because once you read or listen to their content, it will just click. It will be like, yeah, this is something that I want to do. Let's just send them an email. Let's just get in contact with them. Let's meet with them if possible, and let's see how we can create a portfolio that's the best for me.
That sounds, that really makes sense. I mean, there is so much information out there. That is the one thing that, I mean, I think anybody going into the investing world feels like they're being bombarded by a great deal of information. And it's kind of like, well, where can they get the safe information that isn't kind of leading them down the wrong path? I think companies like Investro obviously are trying to not give advice, but just to educate and set a narrative to what is happening in the market. I think a lot of the articles, I actually read an article earlier about Bitcoin entering the Guinness World Records.
Yeah, it happened today.
It happened today, doesn't it? Yeah. Which is, I was always a fan of the Guinness Book of World Records, I think, but mainly I was looking up who's the tallest man in the world and things like that. But it's kind of interesting. It's made such an impact that it's in this book now.
It's kind of like a stamp of approval in a way, which is always good. But to your point earlier, I think that it's very important to start and to give yourself time, because financial markets are very complicated. Everything is connected together. So expecting to read few articles today and start investing tomorrow correctly is just not something that will happen. You should follow the markets for a while. You should definitely talk to professionals. We will never give advice on the website that will say that you should do this or you should do that. But we will give you hopefully a good information about what is happening, how that can impact the world, the jurisdiction where you live, or yourself. So we try to bring the approach from like more of like a bigger approach to bring slowly everything down to you.
Okay, no, that really covered covered my answer. Sorry, that's really covered everything that I wanted to ask. I think it really makes sense in what you're saying with education is first. And unfortunately, people want to hear, oh, there's a quick way around it, but there isn't, is there?
No,
the fact is, you have to go back down to the basics and really start from the ground up.
Yeah, you should never expect the results. And honestly, people would never expect results when it comes to anything else. Like, you wouldn't start running and expect to be athlete of a year in like 2-3 weeks, right? You would never do that. You would need to practice. You would need to take off everything else when it comes to your diet, your routine, your practices, your taking care of your body. So you need to see investing as that. You need to start somehow. You need to start training your mind to see, okay, what is it that I need to do, or what is it that I want to do in the markets? You need to understand why you're doing it and what is your goal. Once you set that, then you can start looking for the companies that can help you and that will help you to create the portfolio that's right for you.
I think they say that it's 10,000 hours to actually master anything, isn't it? So unfortunately, it's study time again. Even
it is, but when it comes to investing, you don't need to put that much time in, because literally with investing, if you're not if you're not trading, so if you're not in the market all the time, if it's not your profession, if it's not your job or your career that you want to pursue, you should be able to set your standards, your portfolio very easily. With someone in charge, obviously, and you wouldn't need to put 10,000 hours in, but you would need to put some hours in. It's not like I just read this article, I want to start investing, and it's definitely this is the way to do. You would need to read or listen or to talk to someone for at least quite a while, and then you can start from there. But then you wouldn't need to go back to investing. Often you can do, for example, DCA, which is dollar cost averaging strategy, which is putting some amount of money into your portfolio every week, every month. The way you set it up is up to you, and you don't need to do anything about it. You should probably invest through someone, for example, who will make sure that the portfolio is doing what it is supposed to. But it's not that you would need to trade or you would need to enter or close positions or anything like that.
And can you get that kind of information on Investro?
Yeah, we are trying to bring, for example, DCA strategies, or we are mentioning them when they are when it's something that suits the article, for example, or the topic. We try to mention them because DCA is literally I don't want to call it idiot proof, but it's one of the simplest strategy you can do, because if you have the right portfolio, you just put the money in, let's say in those intervals every 2 weeks or every month, and you don't need to do anything. You just need to wait. And sometimes waiting can be very hard, especially when it comes to profits, because people tend to be greedy, but this is very simple strategy that can have very good results.
Yeah, that sounds much more safer than some of the apps that you can just download and go for a swing and a miss. That really does make sense. So another question that I do have for you: how do the new investors and old investors actually join Investro, and what's the process they have to go through?
Investro.com basically is the website to go to, and there you can sign up to receive weekly briefings, as I mentioned, and we will keep you updated about everything that we are doing. As I mentioned, we are preparing a lot of stuff, so we will be doing more podcasts like this. We have a very interesting lineup coming in, so it will be people talking about different stuff that are connected to financial world. But we will be also doing more of the academy that I mentioned. We will be releasing a crypto basics course first, but we have 2 more courses that are already in the process of writing, which are both connected to stocks. So we will see the basics there. And I think that the easiest way to just sign up, follow us, and see what we are doing is to use our social media. So we are very active on Twitter. We are very active on Telegram, for example, where we have two chats. One of them is literally for people to come in and talk. So it's basically what people with subreddit of Wall Street Bets try to do, to talk to each other, see what was happening and what was going on. So we try to have a place for people like this to ask questions, and everyone from our team is there as well. So we will be trying to help people who have serious questions about investing, trading, or saving. So that's our Telegram chat for people to ask questions and get in touch with us. But we also have Telegram chat for news, where we post everything that we write about. So all the market movers that we do, which is something that I haven't mentioned. And market movers are very short messages, basically like breaking news type of information, but we didn't want to call it clickbaity breaking news, because it can very quickly get to a point where everything is breaking news. But we obviously try to separate what is actually important, and those news are few sentences, 2-3 sentences about something that has happened now that is very recent, but we feel like people need to get an information just to know that is happening, because this is something that when you see the long red candle or the big green candle, you are like, okay, what is happening? Why is this movement or price action happening to this asset class? So we will try to post as many of these as possible every day, so that people have also these very short news that are connected to financial world. And then obviously we have articles, longer analysis, some of them couple pages. So literally we try to get any type of content so that everyone can come in and see that this is happening. Okay, this is something that I like. This is the length of the article that I like, or this is the length of the podcast or academy that I want to do and I want to see. And they can then just like basically slowly manufacture it to what they like, because we will then in the future also have a dashboard when everyone can sign in and see, for example, if they're only interested in crypto and forex, follow our analysts that are writing about crypto and forex, or if they want to receive news only about, for example, natural gas, they can follow that tag or the hashtag in our platform, in our website, and we will only deliver them the messages connected to that, so everyone can adjust it to their needs.
So this is working like a community, sort of, with everyone together on the platform.
Yeah, exactly. What we try to do, especially with the Telegram and Twitter, where we even try to put a lot of memes and GIFs and all of that funny stuff, so people can laugh, because sometimes all of these pictures or images can help you understand markets better than everything else. So through this, we try to build actually this community on social media mostly. So Telegram and Twitter would be places to go, but we also have Facebook and Instagram, even Pinterest, where we try to put like engaging infographics. So we try to deliver content in basically any form, from formal to less formal, from video form to written form, from longer to shorter. So anything and everything for everyone. So literally you can just come in and see, okay, this is what suits me the best, and I will follow this.
Wow, you seem to be taking over from Facebook with all of the information and everything that you can offer on the site.
Yeah.
No. I wanted to ask a bit of a more of a personal question. I hear that you're a professional dancer in your free time as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is.
So you're investing in the day and then dancing at night. It's,
we can call it that way.
It kind of reminds me of an old 80s movie title, which was Tango and Cash with Sylvester Stallone. You probably have less gunfights in your
I definitely do. Yeah, I definitely do have more dancing than that. But yeah, I think that is something that is, again, important, to not be like sitting by your computer all day, all night. You need to make sure that you are taking care of your body and your mind to get everything out of the systems once in a while. So having a hobby is a good way to do that.
No, I think it's a great thing to do. I wish I could dance as well. And in relation to what you could give advice for as some sort of final words, what would you like to say to the investors of the world, new and old?
Especially to the new, patience is the key. I know that this is such a cliche and everyone says it in a lot of different aspects, but in investing, it literally is the key, because if you have your portfolio set up in the correct way, and if you trust your, whether it's portfolio manager or anyone who is taking care of it, you literally just need to sit on your hands and not do anything. I think that education is very important as well, and especially when it comes to newcomers at the beginning, you need to make sure that you at least try to understand what is happening, because then you see all these news, whether that is in social media or in TV, most of them are catastrophic. Like everything is going to be red in double-digit losses and all of that. And you need to make sure that you understand that even if that happens, you need to trust the process. You need to believe in what you have set up with the portfolio manager, for example, that you understand that this is something that happens in the markets. It's very natural, and the fact that it is, for example, falling down right now in the price doesn't mean that it will continue falling for forever. And I think that this is one of the messages that we try to deliver to our investors: to be patient, to follow what is happening in the markets, whether that is through our academy, whether that is through podcasts, through weekly briefings, basically any type of service or product that we are delivering to our customers or readers is devised in a way that it should bring them closer to the markets, not in any like pushy way. It should just give them the option, like, if this is something that you are interested in, here are sources for you. This is our analysis for you. This is something that might be interested for you.
Yeah, you're providing the information as a service, but you're not giving advice. You're saying this is all the information you may need. And you're not just talking about cryptocurrency. You're going through all of it, aren't you? All commodities, stocks, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I think that is that's some really good information for everybody to take account of. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mark.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
And for all of our listeners as well, please remember to go to investro.com, where you can sign up to the newsletter to get the information about the financial world every week. And you can also sign up as well to the social media platforms that are linked. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, you certainly can on YouTube, Spotify and Google Podcasts.